Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode with us here at Pertnear Outdoors. This is your host, Billy, and we are charging into episode 73. This week's show is going to be with Austin Williams and Wes Lebar, which are a couple guys from the North Country of New York. And if you have been following along with us on Breeding Radio, you know that Austin shot an awesome Adirondack buck the opening weekend of muzzleloader up in the Adirondacks. So whatever that was, 3 weeks ago, I think, at this point. And last weekend, so it would have been the Halloween weekend, I had shot my buck on the 30th, and I got back to camp. And on my phone, I had a bunch of pictures from Wes of a giant buck that these guys shot again. And I had to kind of double take and try to wrap my head around the fact that Austin was sitting behind another Adirondack giant. So needless to say, I really wanted to get those guys on here. And they were two that I wanted to talk a little bit more with, being that they are kind of into the Adirondacks big woods style of hunting. It's very intriguing to me, and I think very intriguing to many others, as my episode I did with Mark Sheeran back maybe about a month ago. That has been my most downloaded episode, which I was really excited to see and appreciative of Mark coming on here so we could kind of reach a new audience. And that big woods culture appears to be a strong one. So I was pretty excited about that. So we'll hear the story of this buck and what it took for these two guys to get this deer on the ground. And if you're listening to this, it's going to be the picture on the album or the episode art, but I'll add a couple other images of them on our Facebook and Instagram posts of this podcast. But yeah, just an absolute giant, beautiful buck, and super happy for these guys and super happy for Austin. He's having a season that will be hard to beat up there in the big woods. So we're going to chat with those guys, it'll be about an hour-long conversation, hitting on a bunch of different things, kind of just talking hunting, strategy, different stuff along those lines, and hopefully be doing some more with them in the future, as they seem like a couple guys that would blend really nicely and we would get along pretty well with. So we'll see if we can tangle up with them one of these days, as we talk about toward the end of the episode. It'd be fun to catch up with those guys and do some hunting with them at some point. So we've got that kind of an update of what's going on around here. As you know, myself, my brother, Danny, my dad, we've all filled our buck tags already. So we're all kind of chilling out, and I couldn't be happier with this weather we have been having over the last week. It's pretty damn nice on a Saturday and Sunday to have it be 70 degrees out, sunny, beautiful, and have zero stress at all about what the deer are doing, what the movement's been, and how I'm going to fill my tag. So I know I've been watching on social media. There's been some great bucks shot. I know some people that have had good action. Jimmy was up at camp Saturday morning and saw some chasing going on. He posted a video up on our Instagram page of that. And allegedly, one of the neighbors had a sighting of Frank today. So Frank and Beans is still running around and causing trouble. So that's exciting. And good to know that he's still hanging in the area. So the rut, is still happening, even though it's 70, 75 degrees out. They're just probably adjusting to it and doing a little bit more during the dark than maybe they normally would this time of year. But happy for everybody, and congratulations to all the hunters out there that did fill their tag this past weekend, because it's or this past week or weekend. It's a time that we all look forward to in that first week of November. It's unfortunate to have the hot weather, but it didn't slow a lot of guys down, and a lot of tags were filled. So congrats to everybody, and hope to have a few more good stories to come to you end of this week with Breeding Radio. I'm looking forward to the gun opener. That's what my sights are kind of focused on as we look into this upcoming weekend. Probably do a little bit of preparation, make sure the guns are sighted in, make sure plans are ready, and probably do some goodwill around the household, because once that buck tag's back in the pocket, and looking at the 21st of July, 21st of November, we'll be up at deer camp, and we're going to go see if we can't fill some more tags. So I'm excited about opening day. I think I'm going to go with my buddy Connor and Jeff Jones, both of which are newer hunters and haven't really experienced that deer camp tradition. So going to try to get those guys in camp this year and go hunt with them on some public land on opening day. So it should be a good time, and look forward to reporting back on that. Next week's episode, I will be I'm going to be crossing paths with Steve Shirk here at some point this week, and going to do an episode with him. We wanted to get him on again to kind of talk a little bit about the big woods and maybe hunting a little bit of post-rut stuff, how he approaches rifle season down there in Pennsylvania. Obviously that's interesting to us, but a lot of that correlates to up here. So I think what I'll do is I'll put a post up. I think I'm going to try to get with him some point Wednesday. So I will probably put a question deal up on Instagram and see if anybody has any questions. We'll do a little Q&A with Steve, pick his brain a little bit. He shot a nice buck a couple weeks ago before I think a lot of his guiding in that got started. So looking forward to hearing that story. But then, just kind of shoot the shit with him and see what's happening, see what his expectations are for the rest of the season as he's tagless. But I know he'll be very busy with clients and trying to put people on some of these big bucks he's been getting pictures of. So a lot of good stuff coming to you. Lastly, on the Pertnear plug side of things, got a few hats left. I put a post up on Saturday. I've got about 10 of the mustard-colored flex, kind of non-structured hat, the mommy daddy hat, as I'm calling it, and we've got 3 left of the blaze orange Frankenbeans hat. So definitely get over there and grab them before they're gone. Once those are gone, I'm probably going to order. I know I've had several requests for hoodies, so we really got to get our button gear, getting some hoodies and T-shirts made. But right now the hats are up on the website, and I've got it set up so if you buy a hat, you get free shipping. So little incentive for you if you need a hat, get one before they're gone, and we'll be moving on to some other stuff after this, so we don't keep burning everybody out with the same stuff. So thank you so much for that. And then on the last thing I'll say, and then we'll get you into this discussion, is really trying to grow the podcast here. It's definitely grown considerably over the last several months, and definitely has picked up during deer season. But I really am asking all of you out there that are listening, I cannot thank you enough for the support. But one thing you could do to help me continue to grow this is, share it, whether it be if you like the episodes, if you're listening to them on your phones, if you could share a post on your Instagram story or on your Facebook story, share a post about the podcast, try to help me get it out there. I hate bombarding people with social media posts myself and saying, listen to my stuff. If you're enjoying it and you think others would as well, it'd be greatly appreciated if you shared it out there. That seems to be the most effective way, and that's how I personally learn about other podcasts that are out there. It's turned me on to some good stuff as well on my personal side of things, listening to different shows that I had no idea were out there either. So I would greatly appreciate that. Share with a friend and help me keep this thing growing. And everybody here at Pertnear Outdoors that's putting a lot of time and effort into all this content with these shows and stuff, we greatly appreciate it too. We're having a ton of fun, and it's been super rewarding to connect with all the hunters out there and hear your stories and your successes, and we're just going to keep going. So thank you so much. Enjoy your week. Good luck if you're hitting the woods, and keep fading them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your
Yeah.
name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and
275
that's
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah. He's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
Remember this?
know what Pertnear means.
If you know what Pertnear means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertnear Outdoors. So what's up, fellas? We're joined again with Wes Lebar and Austin Williams, and they're back again, which can mean only one thing, which means there's more big bucks on the ground.
There is more. There is another story to tell.
Another story to tell.
That is it. That is it.
It's been a few weeks. Do you guys want to kind of just quickly introduce yourselves for anybody that didn't catch that episode of Breeding Radio?
Yeah, so my name's Wesley Lebar. If you didn't catch us on the first podcast, I am the owner of Lebar Guide Service, and I live up in Minerva, New York, which is just about central Adirondacks. And I'm with my buddy here, Austin, who is the same age as I. We graduated the same year in high school in 2013, and we grew up hunting together since about age 9 or 10. So we are back. We are young, avid, millennial deer hunters, and are super excited to be back on the podcast with you. I've been following Pertnear for has to be just over 2 years now, and excited to be linked back up with you and do another podcast.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Austin Williams. Wes is definitely older than me.
By a little bit.
By like 3 months.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely looking than him. But, no, I mean, yeah, he pretty much hit the nail right on the head. We've been friends since second grade, hunting with our dads, and they made us push deer to them when we couldn't even carry guns. So, so we know the lay of the land a little bit, and so
here we are again.
You want to go out and grab my charger from my truck?
Yeah, we can
That's just it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wes just gonna go out and grab my charger quick. But
if you turn your phone sideways, you'll be able to get both of you guys. There you go. Then when he gets back, you'll be able to see you both.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, Wes hit it pretty much on the head, but yeah, we're back again. And
so we had talked. We had talked a week after the opener of Muzzleloader, which was what, the 18th-ish of October?
When I shot that buck was the 18th, yeah.
Yeah.
A week ago.
2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks ago for that.
But, yeah, so the Muzzleloader buck.
Yeah.
So we had talked to you guys, and, you'd had an awesome hunt and put a really, really respectable Adirondack buck on the ground back in the Muzzleloader season. And I shot my buck on Friday, and then all of a sudden I'm getting text messages from Wes with this other giant buck with you guys sitting behind him with your shit-eating grins. And I'm like, what are these guys doing?
What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was just
It's
we're thinking the same. We were sitting there with our hands on our head, looking over this just giant of an Adirondack buck, and we were just like, did we really just do this again? Like the last time we hunted, we were standing over a 200-pound deer too. Just like, man, it's paying off. And then here we are again. I mean, I guess to get into it, are we ready to get into it?
Yeah. Just let's roll.
So it's Friday. It's a week ago. It's Friday, and
work doesn't know that I left a little bit early. So
It's after the fact. The damage is done. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways,
go ahead.
So I'm at work, and I find out I have to work Saturday, and I'm not excited. And this is before daylight saving time. I get out a little early on Friday, and Austin and I had been planning a hunt for a couple weeks prior to that weekend, which was last. And I get out of work. I'm on Friday. I'm headed home. I got out a little bit early. I said, man, I'm going to be able to get in an hour and a half hunt before, legal sundown. And 2 days ago, a little backstory, on Wednesday, I had gone in. I got out of work a little bit early. I gone in with a buddy to the same stand of oak trees, and we sat in there. This was his first buck. We sat down. As soon as we sat down and got settled, we looked up. There was a buck. He came in, long story short, like 20 minutes later, shot him, got his first buck. So here we are Friday.
Well,
I'm on.
the best part about that one, so when I shot mine was 30th, Friday before Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
But the best part is the buddy that came up, a little backstory on this, like I worked with him, me and Wes actually both worked with him at Wes's dad's business. And he didn't have a rifle. And he's like, oh, like Wes was like, oh, I was just gonna let me use one of my rifles. And I was like, I'm just bagging on Wes, you don't want to use that. Don't worry about that. I said, I got a gun you can use. So I had a 30-30, just an old lever action 30-30. I'm like, dude, the thing drives tacks at 100 yards. Like, so he's like, yeah, I'll take it. I was like, all right, showed him how to load it, everything. And so it was an old lever action. So Wes brought him up there to the same exact spot, and he killed his first buck with Wes, with my gun. So it was just
that's really cool. Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
And the 3 deer that have been shot with that gun, the one I shot, flipped over backwards, shot him right in the chest, flipped over backwards. My sister shot her first deer with it, and he went maybe 10 yards. She right through front shoulders, done. And then Mike shot this one and flipped him right over backwards.
That's
so
awesome.
It's like, you can't beat that. So Wes, go ahead.
So that was Wednesday.
That was Wednesday. So we get back in there Friday, and oh my gosh. So we're going down in there, and we're driving the vehicle down in there, and we look over, and someone set up a tent land. This is on public land, by the way. This buck was killed on public land. And we look over, someone set up a tent camp. Plate is Connecticut. We get down in there right to where we parked. There's another plate, Massachusetts. So we're like, oh my gosh, just like this area of state land is just getting bombarded with out-of-towners. And we get Vermonters in there every year because their season opens a week later than ours. So we get walking up in there, and we get right next to the trail. We're going up there, and right off the trail, we look over, and like 20 yards, there's this guy sitting in like full orange camouflage, and we're like, oh man, so we're easing up into one of my favorite spots. Austin's actually never been in this exact location before. So around it. So yeah, so I was, back to the original story before Austin told his little side story. I was coming up the interstate, and I called Austin about the hunt this weekend. He said, oh, I'm already up here. And I was like, well, do you want to come, sit with me? Do you happen to want to come, go for a little bit? Which might have been a little mistake on my part.
Divine intervention there. Yeah.
Spot right now. But long story short, either way. So we're easing up in there. We see some people in our spot. We get up, and we get just about to where I want to put Austin, and deer start running everywhere. And I'm like, oh shit, excuse me. I mean, they're to our.
You can say whatever you want.
They're to our rear. Like, we hear someone running behind us. Austin, there's some running in front of us. So I said, we have to split up now. So Austin, there's a little nub. I put him up on there, and I went about 40 yards to the left, and about 40 yards to the left.
Yeah,
sitting a little bit back from where he is. And so when I look to my right, I'm looking over north, and I can see Austin's head, and I'm predominantly like facing southwest, but I can see really good up on the hill to my east. So we sat down at actually, what was it, 4:50?
Yeah, I think he texted me, and he's like, oh, I got service down
which
here.
is like late, yeah. And I don't want to give away a location because I don't really like doing that, but a recent town near us got service in the last 5 or 6 months, and we happen to have service in this spot. And so he sat down, we texted each other. So we're sitting there, he's going to give out a couple soft grunts. So he does, and about 10 minutes goes by, we may have exchanged a text or two.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there, and, I thought I heard some grunting again. And I was like, but I just didn't really play off any,
So those deer that were running, they were just naturally just running.
They're feeding on oak trees.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So our strategy and our approach to this hunt was to get into a food source like we talked about on the last podcast. So we were heading up into the oak trees. We could get up there in about 10 minutes from where we leave the vehicle. So that was just our plan. So boom, get up in there, short hunt. So we're in the oak trees. We can see pretty far. Austin gave some grunts. It's about 10 minutes later. I thought I heard more grunts. And it was just unfathomable, just the way how fast it happened. So I'm sitting there, and and I hear a deer running. And Austin had texted me. He said, "Deer in front of me, don't move." Instantaneously after he texted me, which I didn't know that yet, I looked over and I could see this doe running up this hill. And the way she was running around this knob at about 90 yards from me, I was like, that doe is getting chased by a buck. So I clicked my safety off and I shouldered my gun. When I shouldered my gun, that doe had stopped. And about the time I shouldered my gun, I saw the deer behind her stop. And I said, man, and this all happened within about 5 seconds, and it's going to take me 2 minutes to explain it. But so about that time that doe stopped, I saw a second deer behind it stop. When I saw that deer stop, I said to myself in my head, I said, man, I hope Austin doesn't downsize. Kaboom! I heard him let one off. And mind you, I can see him from about 40 yards. When he let one off, all I see is this Rachosaurus running through the woods. Luther. We named him Lucifer, but we call him Luther for short. He was running across the ridge down there at about 90 yards. So Austin plucked him with a 270 right in the lungs, blew his left lung to smithereens. That buck come running across the ridge. I pulled up my 243. It came through opening. I had my gun up. I pulled the trigger, and that sucker did a front flip and smacked a tree right in front of him. And when he hit that tree, he rolled over again. He stood back up, and I shot at him again. I know I missed him on that shot. I ran down the hill. He was flopping around. It was about a 90-yard shot. And when Austin skinned that deer the next day, I actually did hit that deer running at 90 yards through the woods, and I did roll that deer. He had to kill on it. It is Austin's deer 100%, but I shot that deer at 90 yards and put a bullet hole in him 2 inches below him and rolled that deer into a tree. You could see the tracks and everything. It was amazing. We played it through. So we got down there. I saw the deer again, saw he was down. I dropped my gun.
No, hang on.
With tears.
You forgot.
Oh, what?
You forgot one shot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so I ran down there, and he was flopping around, and he was flopping around, and the deer was so big, I ran right up to it, and I shot it again. I was like, I'm not letting this deer go. You know what I mean? Right. And when you're looking at the deer like that, and then plus it was still, it was a dead deer with Austin shot, and then I shot at it again and hit it. But so then I dropped my gun, and I ran up to Austin. I'm just going to admit it. I was in tears. I was just like, dude, you just shot a absolute giant. And then so here we are, just once again perplexed. It went from just a short conversation on the phone to an hour later, we're standing over
an absolute giant. Yeah.
What we scored an hour ago at a gross of 133-inch deer.
Yeah.
With an inch spread and 24-inch beams. I mean, it was just we were just looking at each other, and it was just such an emotional moment. I mean, we're just like, man. All this time we put together, and even though it was a vast hunt, and I didn't even know Austin was up here, and I invited him, and we was just like, we were there and for a quick moment, and then we were just like, man, this is starting to pay off for us,
Yeah.
We're just...
Well, there's something to be said for that too, like just on a whim having a hunt, because I think sometimes it's been like the topic of conversation for the last week with me and my buddies is like, we're just overthinking everything, and sometimes you just got to just grab your gun, throw your clothes on, and just get out for an hour,
Exactly. I thought, and when we're standing over this deer as a deer hunter, I'm just processing the moment, and I'm just thinking, like, over the last 15 years of being a deer hunter, how many times have I had 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour and a half? But I thought to myself, well, I need to hour to get out there and for let things to cool down, you know what I mean? But now that I think about it, it's just like, you got 45 minutes and you're on the way home. Like, I left Bolton, New York the other day at 3:30, and I got on Onyx Maps, and in 10 minutes I found state land, and I'm in my work clothes. I grab my gun and I run up the side of this mountain, and I found a buck rub. I found a runway, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, now all of that stuff is like, why didn't you do it before? Right. Chances, you just got to do it. If you're a deer hunter, don't second guess yourself. Do it. You know what I mean? If you got an opportunity, do it. Take advantage of these things, because he shot a buck of a lifetime, and it happened in 20 minutes. We were there 20 minutes.
Yeah, and there was other people there. There was a million reasons for you guys not to go out. Like you get to the trailhead and there's somebody else parked there. You see somebody off the road.
someone 100 yards from where I want to set up Austin. I mean, so we go 150 and sit down. I mean, there's bucks. He was chasing a doe, rutting her up the side of this mountain, just roaring, and we could both hear this buck coming, and it was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it was
from your
insane.
perspective.
I mean, I was up. I was like, all right, I'm going to get out a little bit early, and I'm just going to go check. I'm like, I heard through the rumor mill and reading stuff, and that Halloween weekend with that new moon and the blue moon, like everything was going to start.
Rut activity definitely started earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think at the end of this year, we'll all agree on that.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, like, I was like, all right, yeah, I'll just go up to my usual hunting spots, and I got my dad's four-wheeler up there, so I was like, oh, I'll just kind of drive around and have the gun on my lap and just see if there are any tracks or scrapes in the trails and shit like that. So
you were setting waypoints for us too.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, the next hunt we were going to do was going to be, since he had to work, was going to be Sunday, and where we wanted to end up from a trailhead down, I set a waypoint onto this property where we could go to. So I'm up on this trail, and I'm coming up by one of my old stands, and actually the other podcast was with that first deer that in first grade when my dad took me out of school. It's pretty much like 20 yards from where that is. So I'm coming down the trail, right? And I'm driving four-wheeler down one-handed, make sure the gun doesn't slip off me. And all of a sudden I look, I'm like, there's a deer right there. And it wasn't like a deer stand, it was a dead deer. And I'm like, what the hell? And there was a dead deer laying right in the middle of the skid trail. I'm like, well, what the hell is that? And it was just, like a little tiny, like probably like maybe a 10-inch spread on it, like a little 6-point. And there was just a little bit of fur and hide underneath right the base of the antlers. And then it was all connected to the spine. And then its back legs were connected. And I'm like, well, what the hell? So I'm looking at this deer, and I stop the four-wheeler, turn it off, and I lean my gun up against a tree, and I'm like, well, I guess I can pull the head off of it. And I'm like, man. And Wesley calls me. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm looking at this dead deer. Oh, you think it got shot? And I'm like, I don't know. So there's no meat, no hide. I said, I can't even tell. This.
Yeah.
Like, well, he's like, well, you want to go sit? I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, well, I'm going to lose service. Boom, lost service. I'm like, well, just text me what you want to do. So he calls me back, and yeah, we'll go. So I went up, set the waypoint, and he's like, I'll be at the house at 10 after 4. All right. So I'm only 2 minutes from his house. And so I get down there. He's like, I'm home. I said, I'm coming down right now. So we jump in, go down, walk up in, and like you said, we see the hunters, and then we go over, and we're kind of talking through, and he goes, if you sit right here, he goes, I'll go over there. And I'm like, all right. And we were talking, and it was kind of our own fault, kind of, but we didn't look around really. I took 2 steps, Billy, and I see a tail.
Oh yeah, that's from when we.
And I'm like whistling to him, and I'm like, deer. And so I dropped right down, and I got on a knee, and I'm looking, and I'm like, all right, I'm pretty sure that was a doe. And she went down over, but I didn't hear her take a lot of bounds. So I'm like, okay. So I get set up between these 2 monster oak trees. And Wes could see me, and I could see him, and texted at 4:50 up. Oh, Wes, I got service. And I was like, yeah, I do too. So I said, I'm going to let out some soft grunts. I said, around 5. He goes, okay. So he texted me 4:56 or 4:57. He goes, let out, and he goes, grunt, question mark. I was like, yep. Let out just a few burps. And so then he's texting, he's like, I can hear something behind us. And I'm like, all right. And there's a monster ridge. Wide open hardwoods behind us.
Big oaks.
And I'm like, so I kind of turned and looked behind me. But I'm like, man, I swear I hear something in front of me. So where I was sitting, right then in front of me, there was some thick beech brush. But off to my right, there was open hardwoods, and then off to my left, where the buck ended up dying, was wide open oaks. So I'm like, okay, well, I hear something, and I'm like, no. So I had on a beanie, so I pulled it up, and I'm like, kind of turning my head each way. I'm like, man, no. And I hear it again. I'm like, no, I hear something down there. And then I hear a big stick break. And it's not like a deer walking a stick break. Like it's like a person walking stick break. So I'm like, damn. I'm like, there's another hunter down there. I'm like, all right. So a couple minutes goes by. And I text him. I said, I see a deer in front of me coming right to left. Don't text back. And I had my phone on silent, but the vibration was like wicked in my pocket.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no. So all of a sudden, I hear, brr, brr. And I'm like, I'm like, huh. And I'm going to be honest with you. Of all the years I've been hunting, I have never heard a buck grunt until that day.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
It's definitely a distinct sound.
yeah. So I was like, well, here we go. And then I see the doe. I'm like, okay. And she's down in there and she's in a little hole. And I kind of like turn my head and I look back at her and she pegged me. And I'm like, oh, no, that's it. So I'm not moving. And I'm like, okay. And then she went back. She was cleaning herself, whatever. And she walked over a little bit toward west. And she was down over a little ridge where I couldn't see her. So I kept hearing, brr, brr, brr. And I'm like, man, there's a buck down there. Well, I start seeing a silhouette through the freaking beach brush. I'm like, here we go. And he darted toward this doe. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Well, she took off toward west. So he saw her.
That's when I saw her, yeah.
And I had a hole, and Wes saw it.
Ooh.
It's probably the size of a beach ball.
Yeah.
And he comes through it, and I see the beam, and he stops. Absolutely perfect. I didn't grunt at him.
Right in the opening.
Yeah.
He just stopped. Absolutely perfect. So I'm like,
couldn't have gotten any better for him. I mean,
so I was up, and I'm like, yep. And I was looking through the scope, and he came through, saw the beam, and I'm like, yep. Boom. And he froze. And so by the time the recoil came back, I'm hunting with a bolt action, but if you ask my dad, it sounds like a lever action or a pump coming out of this thing when I rack him again.
No.
So boom, and I'm like, recoil back, racked it, and so it felt like 5 seconds that he stood there, but it was like not even half a second.
Yeah.
And he took off, so I start leaning forward, and I'm following him through the open hardwoods.
so you could hardly see him at that point.
Yeah, so like I could see his antlers going through, and then he's starting getting into the opening. I'm like, all right, pick a hole, put another one in him. And I thought I saw his legs kind of his back leg getting weak. Well, about that time, I was about to touch another one off. Boom! And I roll. I'm like, all right, well, he hit the ground. Boom! Again. And I'm like, well, geez. So I end up and Wes takes off running.
I was halfway down the hill by the time he got up.
And he heads down there and he's like, dude, you just shot a monster. Boom!
Well, I shot and then I said that.
Yeah.
So he lays the gun down, comes running up to me. So then we get down there, right? And I'm like, man. And we're talking, and Wes is crying, and I'm just about in tears and whatnot. So we get going, and I'm like, Wes goes, what did it do when you hit him? And I told him, and he goes, are you sure you hit him? I'm like, dude, pretty sure. So we start backtracking.
Yeah, it didn't take long. We looked, and
all of a sudden we were on the doe's tracks because we found the blood, and then we were kind of on the tracks, and I'm like, oh, man. And all of a sudden we get back there, and Wes is like, well, there's where he shot him, and you could just see the spray out the back.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, this deer was dead running. And
But I can tell you one thing: he wasn't getting out of there.
No.
We had him.
Isn't it amazing with the gun though? Like somebody might be listening to this that's a new hunter and say, man, was it really necessary to shoot him again point blank to finish him? But it's like with a gun, I have been on more rodeos with a gun than a bow. Like with archery equipment, it just seems like it's a quieter thing. The deer is like doesn't necessarily always know what happens. So a lot of times, the deer runs off and you never get that opportunity for a follow-up shot. But with a gun, I mean, how many times have you seen it where you hit them? You could hit them right in the pump house, and they just go and go and go, and they get adrenaline pumping.
The adrenaline will drive a deer. I could sit here and tell you stories for days about my young cousin who shoots a 300 Blackout. It's a 300 caliber bullet and a 223 casing, and we shot one deer an embarrassing amount of times. But anyways, his father just wanted him to kill the deer, and so excuse me, the sun kept, putting the bullets in it. But these deer, when they get under adrenaline and they're age 5 to 6 and they're 260 on the hoof, they can take some shots. You know what I mean? I mean,
120 pounds on the hoof, they can take it.
I think anybody that thinks that why would you shoot at a deer that many times, you've just never hunted enough, because you've never been in a situation where you've been 4.5, 6, 7 miles back in the woods and you're shooting at a deer and you don't want it to run downhill and you want to put an ethical shot on it. And even if you did or didn't, you want that deer to go down ASAP so you can get it, out of there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I had a buck. It was actually the first buck I ever killed. I had wounded him like 4 days before. I killed him on Thanksgiving, and I had wounded him. I ended up just being a flesh wound. I hit him in the leg. And we were doing a little deer drive, kind of like a still hunt up in the woods at our camp. And I hit this deer, but it was just a flesh wound. It was on the leg. And he went up on the side hill and bedded, and I ended up just randomly stumbling across him because I kind of out of curiosity thought that was the last direction I'd seen him go. I end up coming up on this deer at like 50 yards. I was above him on the side hill. It's real steep. And the deer's bedded there and just staring at me. And I was using a 12. We couldn't use rifles at the time, so I was using my 12 gauge. And this deer's bedded. He's not going anywhere, and I got a tree I'm resting on, put it right behind his shoulder and shoot. Deer doesn't even react. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, did I freaking miss him? So I shot again. And he flips over and starts rolling down the hill. And he like lands like in another kind of like flat spot, on the side hills. You get these little like tree spots where it's flat. And the deer just sits there and he looks back at me again. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, so I pumped another one in him right behind the shoulder. I ended up, that deer had been wounded and he had been laying there for, I figure, at least 3 or 4 days. Because I shot him on a Sunday and the last place I had blood, I shot him on a Saturday evening. And the last place I had blood was on that Sunday. We went looking for him the next morning. So he laid there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I shot him on Thursday. So he never left that spot. And that deer was just sitting there, he was whittling away, like he couldn't walk. He was hurting that bad. And, but I ended up hitting him all 3 times right behind the shoulder. And he was not. So I ended up just putting my gun up against a tree and I just walked away because I'm like, I could see the wound behind his shoulder. I'm like, this isn't good. Like he's not going anywhere, but it's just his adrenaline's keeping him alive. I got to walk away from this,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It happens. That's the reality. But I'm so happy for you guys. When I got that message, I was up at camp and we were sitting around the table. I'm like, look at this shit. These guys got another one.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. It's, 8:40 at night. So we knew about this podcast at 8:00. So I was like, awesome, let's just take a little ride around. We'll go look for some deer, So we headed up to the local bar. We ended up there. Funny how that works,
Yeah.
So we walk in there. And these 2 guys got food and they're walking out and they go, hey, I just got to walk up to this guy right here and shake his hand. And I'm looking at Austin. They walk up to him and shake his hand. We live in a town of 900 people. 75% senior citizens. So people coming in this bar. Right. It's lucky if there's 8 people there on a Friday and Saturday night. There's 10 people in there, and these 2 guys walk up and shake Austin's hand because a week ago he killed this buck, and they saw him on social media or something like that. You know what I mean? Just small town talk. They know him by his face and just came up. We don't even know their name and still don't.
I have no idea who they are.
We have no idea who they are. Came up and just like, congratulations on an awesome buck. It's just, I guess it's something to do with the Adirondacks and just people being in this area this time of year trying to get one,
Yeah. You got any sponsorship calls or anything coming?
Well, we got a podcast going.
Yeah, there you go. Pertnear Outdoors will, be on our pro staff. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. I love seeing it. And I mean, there's been some giant buck shot this year, and we always get some good bucks down in the southern region. But I mean, what you guys are getting up there in the North Country this year, is this normal? Are you seeing deer like this up there on a normal basis, or?
Absolutely not. And you know what the funniest thing is that I've hardly seen any deer compared to normal years around here. Yeah, I mean 2 years ago I had 11 different bucks on camera. Last year I had 7 to 8 different bucks on camera. This year is less than that, and I've seen less does, less bucks. But out of the 6 bucks that I've seen this entire 2020 season, 3 of them have been shooters, and 2 of them have been killed by Austin because I saw him moments before that he killed them. So it's just like, you know, there's deer being killed. I definitely think they're in different areas, and as far as the Adirondacks, that's normal because they go off apples, acorns, and beech nuts, you know, and there's no apples or beech nuts this year, so they're way in the acorns. So you hear people, I hear a lot of other people that hunt local where there's not a lot of oak trees, and they're not seeing deer because they're not in the oak trees, you know.
Yep.
So it's, you know, it's hit or miss. I agree with you 100% because I've seen it as well up here and out of the Adirondacks that a lot of people are killing big bucks, but as far as everybody seeing a lot of deer, I'm not hearing a lot of that feedback.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing a lot of deer movement earlier than normal and rut activity earlier than normal.
Yeah.
And I do, that's due to the new moon and that coming around every 4 or 5 years. I believe that's, you know, kind of normal, but yeah, definitely a lot of big bucks being killed this year.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it has been an abnormal year. There's not many years where we killed 2 bucks like that in such a short amount of time and so early in the season.
Yeah,
so
without snow to track, without any of that stuff.
Florida's been good to us, so
No doubt.
we're hoping for a good rest of the season.
I mean, I guess I can let Wes carry a gun the rest of the
Yeah,
year.
he's gonna. You know, it's fun. It's funny because
carrying a gun the first part of the year.
Yeah,
so
so like it's funny. I felt like a guide more than, you know. I've guided the last 2. I've had my guide license, I don't know, 3.5 years now, and this year is the first year I haven't guided any deer hunts, and I feel like I'm doing it for free. You know.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what's the tip? What'd you give him for a tip, Austin? That's bullshit if you didn't give him anything.
So you can.
There you go. That's fair. I'd say a year's worth of bar tabs for that.
Yeah.
And the rest of the year I'm pushing to him. So
yeah, he knows it. He knows.
This past weekend, I mean, speaking on the rut activity, Billy.
Oh my gosh, we had an amazing hunt this last Sunday.
So he started up and he goes, "Let's do these big woods hunt." And I mean, like the one where I killed my big buck, like yeah, it's big woods, but it's not like where we went. And I'm like, all right. So we get going up, right, Billy?
Is it just you guys, or do you have anybody else?
Yeah, just us.
So this is new country to me. Probably about the first half of it was new country to me. And Wes had hunted the other country, so he went around the ridge, and we were kind of working the ridges. So he goes around, he goes, all right, give me, I think it was like half an hour. He goes, and then start, because our radios wouldn't work because of the ridge in front of us.
It's typical Adirondack.
Yeah. So it was
radios
cold.
never work.
It was cold. I mean, like,
cold.
Like 25.
The thing that sucked about it is that you cannot be quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't see a single deer because we could not be quiet. It didn't warm up until midday.
Yeah, probably.
We rattled in a buck, didn't even know it until we left the post and I got up on this ridge and saw where he came down. You know, long story short, we covered some amazing ground. I mean, but we just couldn't be quiet. We wanted to ask you guys got to get up here so we can hunt some ground together, because there's no one around here that we really want to take to these spots. We'd rather take someone who lives 5 hours away and can't get here on Friday night to hunt. You know what I mean? So
it was like,
but we saw some amazing ground. Austin covered some wicked rut activity. I mean, he saw scrapes on scrapes of this one buck working this mountain.
I had to have seen like 20 scrapes within a 200-yard circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, so I mean, to say the rut activity,
it's here.
It's here.
Up here.
To say it's in full swing, I think it would be if the weather was right. But I mean,
is it warm? Is it warm there right now?
Warm here. So warm, you could walk outside with a t-shirt right now, and I hate to say.
I drove home this afternoon with a pair of shorts on.
Yeah.
It was 72 in Rome when I left.
It breaks my heart because Tuesday morning I had 6 inches of snow on my lawn.
Yeah.
I was this close to losing my job. I was like, what kind of story can I make up so I can go out and track an Adirondack buck?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. I mean, these last couple of years down here, I don't know about you guys up in the North Country, but we had snow almost the entire deer season down here.
Yeah. 2 years ago,
pretty early.
2 years ago, November 7th, we had 22 inches of snow. I was guiding It was my first year guiding with Adirondack Mountain Stream Guide Service through Jamie Frazier, and I was hiking up the side of hills with snow up over my knees. There was 22 inches.
That's too much. That's not
Yeah,
enjoyable.
I mean, the thing is that, and I'd love to get into more podcasts about Adirondack deer hunting, but because you can't do it in one single podcast. But when we had that snowstorm, we were doing drives in the Adirondack Park. I had 22 deer come out of one drive, out of one hunt. I'll call it a hunt because I was still hunting but I had 3 clients and total added deer count was 22 deer, because when we get snowfall up here, these deer file out of the mountains. Mm-hmm. You can set up, I know guys that have hunted bucks in the Adirondacks, and he's 50 years old. He's hunted them since he was 10 years old. They set up trail cameras. They'll get 500 pictures in 2 weeks, and the deer all heading in one direction. That's 500 different deer.
Yeah.
And they file out of the mountains and come down towards town. And so we can hunt more locally and just see just so many deer. You feel like you're hunting southern zone.
It's fascinating. It's just, I mean, they're like elk and mule deer. They literally migrate to wintering grounds.
It like caribou up in the Arctic. I worked for a kind of like a guide service up in above the Arctic Circle in Cottebute, Alaska, for caribou. And when I worked out there, I mean, you literally work off the migration. And when we get snow around here, it's literally like a migration for the whitetail.
It's pretty much like, I mean, I buy timber up on Tug Hill, and it's the exact same thing.
Yep.
Like during the wintertime, if I have jobs going in the winter, you do not see a single deer track. You don't see a single deer. No. They all herd into the towns. It's just, but I mean, Tug Hill, I mean, freaking, they can forecast for 8 feet of snow in one day. But like, I mean, it's like once the snow hits, they're gone. Like you don't find them.
They come out of the mountains. They rely on human beings to survive.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. The buck I shot last year, I shot a 6-pointer that was 4.5 years old. He scored tiny. I mean, he had a deficiency in his genetics, to say the least. But I was in a group chat on Snapchat with a group of people. There was probably 12 of us. I shot the buck on the last day of season in my hometown, and a kid that I didn't even know in that Snapchat group had a picture of that buck way down a dirt road, almost in the next town from me, and in a straight line on Onyx from where he got the picture of the buck to where I harvested it was 7.7 miles. So that buck traveled, if you think about walking over mountains and ridges, that buck went 9 to 10 and 10 and a half, 11 miles before I killed him easily. Yeah. From where I got the picture in November, 2 weeks later, I killed him on the last day of hunting season, 7.5 miles away.
It's the same way with the rut too.
I mean, because of the track, there was no denying that it was the same exact deer.
Yeah. And that's what when I had Mark Sheeran on here, like he was talking about how like hunting up there in the mountains during the rut, it's like, don't even bother trying to think you're going to hunt a specific deer, because it's like their range is just dramatic. It's just so big.
I know, and people don't understand that. Like I argue with locals in our town that, like, I've had a picture of a buck way down on the Hudson River, and they kill it behind their house up near my town, and I'm like, you know, I picture that buck 4.5, 5 miles away, and they're like, oh, there's no way. It's like that deer can travel that distance in 2 hours. You know what I mean? And when you get up here in the woods, like we look at it on Onyx and we study it and we map it out and we strategize, and then we go and do it. And it's really not, when you get out there and you do it on foot, it's not that big of a distance as when it looks like on a map. So if you think about it to a deer who's on 4 feet,
it's nothing.
Like it's nothing. It's literally a walk park. It's like,
I mean, like this push we did, this hunt we did this past weekend, I measured it off of Onyx to the corner of the property where I put that waypoint. I'm like, Wes, I said, we got to go 2.3 miles. And mind you, so it ended up, we didn't do the one push. So it ended up being like 2 miles. We did it in 4 pushes. Like that's it. It was 4 hunts and that's it. But like my dad killed a buck on that property where we ended. And the buck that I killed was probably, I don't know, straight line, 3 miles away. Yeah, probably. 3 miles. And they had the exact same genetics. He came out and he went straight. He didn't curve like that 8. He came out, and then he just went right straight. And it's his same exact genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and then my cousin he actually killed a 13-pointer off of the same property that my dad shot, that 10. And it's just kind of looks like almost the same genetics, but it's like,
yeah, it's cool to see that.
They move so much during the rut, and it's like, once the rut comes, you can get a deer pattern early season, but once the rut comes.
Well, you hear guys of like the Salernos that I've grown up idolizing over because I saw them at the Scroon Lake outdoorsman shows, and I've got to meet all those guys and talk to them.
Joe
Donito and Hal Blood. Joe Donito killed one.
Mm-hmm.
And Hal Blood. I mean, they'll tell you stories. Those guys are. I mean, Hal's a guide, but I mean, Joe will tell you too. They've tracked bucks 14 miles before they got a shot at them in a single 8-hour light day.
Yeah.
I mean, 14 miles, and that's nothing to a buck. I mean, you think if he does that in one day, where did he even really come from? In the last 2 days before that, he could have been 14 miles and 28 miles in that next direction. You know,
they do have their core areas, but.
And
they don't.
It's so much different. It's so much different than ag land, yeah.
On Austin's deer, I mean, to finish up on that buck, I mean, outstanding buck, 133-inch deer. I mean, his beams were 4 inches thick all the way out. Yeah. He had 24-inch beams all the way out through. We just measured it 2 hours ago. His G2s on one, his G2 and his G3 on one side was snapped off. I mean,
his G2 on the right side. He had the G2 and then the kicker, and then his G3 and his G4 were broke off.
I mean, what kind of bucking? I mean, it's like you think that, oh, this deer must be the only big deer in that area. No, there's a deer that had a deep as rack, as strong of neck and muscles to snap that deer's antler. I mean, that
it's
deer
insane. It's absolutely insane.
11-inch G2s and 2 inches of it snapped off. It's there's other bucks in this area. There's more deer out here than you think. You just don't see them because it's mountains and not flatland.
Yeah, man. And even in the flatland, like this year, we've got 10 Cuddy Link cameras on the farm on a 250-acre farm. Dude, the last 2 weeks on those cameras have been dead. Nothing.
Really?
We are getting nothing. Like we're getting does and little spike horns, and that's it. The mature buck that we're after, the only thing we can figure, I've been talking with the neighbors and with the guys with Dallas and Brian that I hunt with on it's their farm, is like that deer probably, based on all the pictures we had up through the summer and into the fall, he's the biggest buck in the block. And I don't think he's got any competition. We're not. No. We didn't see a single buck all summer, all fall in that block of woods that would even threatened him. So the best. I mean, we know that there's does going hot and that there's some breeding happening, but it's like, is there nobody challenging him? So he's just betting, and the does are coming right to him. I don't know. Like, he's not going anywhere because we're not getting pictures of him, and neither are the neighbors. And he's not dead, because if he got killed, we would know about it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And then we've got that, kind of similar to what you guys are talking about. Like, we've got that big buck, where our camp is in Naples is more of it's a big woods. There's a little bit of ag down there, but it's mainly just, hills and valleys. And and we've got that giant buck that's shown up the last 3 years in a row, Frankenbeans. And that deer, we haven't really been posting pictures of him this year because he's so big. We don't want
it.
What's that?
I love that name. Did you get that from The Office?
No, we got it because do you really want to know why?
Yeah, I really want to know why.
You're not gonna be offended when I tell you why. So so it was an inside joke. A Frank would be a male pecker or a penis, and beans would be the nuts. Okay, so he is the big Frankenbeans on the block, is why we call him Frankenbeans.
Frankenbeans. I love that. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name it Big Bucks after that.
And that all goes back to, okay, I'm gonna get a little inappropriate here, but that all goes back to Frank Gore, running back in the NFL. So Frank Gore never wears a cup, and his Frankenbeans is flopping around all over the damn place. He's running around.
Absolutely
That's an inside joke with me and my buddy Chris. It's like, oh, freaking Frankenbeans is running it today,
Yeah, you run.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. So that buck, same deal. We've gotten connected with the neighbors, and like we've had pictures of people messaging us that their camps are 4 miles as the crow flies from our place, and they said they've got pictures of him on theirs. But he shows up at our place for whatever reason. He comes to us for the rut, and then he leaves. I don't know why. He must like a couple of girls we got. I don't know.
Yeah, you must have some receptive does that hang around that spot that come in at the right time, and he's there.
Yeah.
Because
I swear, like with the bucks, they can travel however far during the rut.
Mm-hmm.
But once they start getting in a post rut, they're going to go to their food, but also they're going to come back either at the end of the rut or the next year. They're going to come back to their home area. Like I had a buck. It's actually on the background of my screen. Wesley goes, "Where's that buck from?" And I go, "Well, it's from here." And it was back when I was a freshman in college. So that was I don't know. When we graduated, 2013?
Yeah.
So 2014.
5 years ago.
I had pictures of this buck. And I had encounters with this buck on either that one property, the property over, it's a 200-acre parcel. I had so many encounters with this buck. And all of a sudden, he just disappeared. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, all right, because I had one strike. I couldn't get up in the morning. He was there. I had to leave at 7:30. He was there at 7:05. And I'm like, ugh. So I told my sister, I'm like, get in the stand. And she couldn't go that day. I was at a class at 4:50. He was there at 4:30. And I'm like, all right, 3 strikes, you're done. I didn't miss him, sit, nothing. And he just disappeared. And I'm like, where did he go? 2 days before the season ended, he popped back up. And then on the other side, I had history with this deer for 3 years. And I'm pretty sure he ended up getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. And it's just, they come back to that area, but it's just trying to pattern those big bucks.
I don't think there is.
There isn't, because they pattern too.
I got a kind of a question for you guys and what your thoughts are on this. Do you more try to pattern the activity than pattern the deer? Like if you like you're up in those big wood situations, and like with you doing what you're doing, Wes, with the guiding, like do you ever leave cameras up for a whole year and just let them soak in an area and just try to see what happened throughout the season in there?
I'm doing that, but I've got more cameras stole from me early season than anything. So I've been hesitant to put out cameras until September, and just for a few different reasons, because I feel like people don't go back and bother those certain areas, getting close to season and all that, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, as far as patterning a deer, like this is something that as a guy like me who grew up like not having a background in hunting, like my grandfathers didn't hunt, my father didn't hunt. So I had to learn a lot by myself through cameras, through trial and error and stuff like that. As far as the Adirondacks, I use cameras and pictures of deer as just like a motivational factor to know that there's deer out there. Because like, I hate that people go on TV, the Outdoor Channel, Pursuit TV, and they see the Lukowskis, and they see Drury Outdoors, and they see Primos, and they see Mike Waddell honing in these deers, getting them on camera, and they have the whole pattern and they have the whole pattern and like the
He said deers. Yes, he said deers.
Structure and
you caught that?
I got it. Yeah.
The deers.
They're patterning these deers. Yeah.
Yeah. So patterning deer.
He's from the south. It's all right. Let him go.
Okay. So either way, but you know what I mean. So like they're like trying to pattern these deer, and they can do it because where they live, they have 80% farmland and 20% woods, and where we live is 10% open, like. You have just yards and a couple fields
like CRP.
And 90% woods. You know what I mean? You cannot, these deer aren't confined to these small thickets. You know what I mean? Like down in Arkansas where I learned how to hunt, where I shot my first deer, where my uncles got me into hunting. They hunt these huge fields and they own 3,000 acre farms, but they got 50-acre thickets on them, and they sit there, and that deer pokes his head out of the cornfield, and they shoot a 160-inch monster, and they're considered a good deer hunter. I hated that. Like, my whole life, like, I didn't hate them specifically for it, but, like, all these famous deer hunters on TV, they got all these deer patterned, and boom, 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 and the deer sticks their head out, and they shoot them, and they're 200 inches. It's like, they can't do that up here. You know what I mean? Up here is completely different. Like, cameras are a motivational factor. There's no patterning these deer. These deer will go 20 miles to breed a doe. Like, if a buck in Iowa or Arkansas or Mississippi moves 10 miles, it's going to get killed by the next biggest buck. You know what I mean? But big bucks around here, like Austin's deer, will travel 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 miles because it will compete with other bucks in its area. If you go on the New York State DEC website and you look at the Adirondack part, they average 7 to 8 deer per square mile. I mean, that is nothing. That is like, to me, it's like borderline extinction. You know what I mean? And the way
Right.
think about it, I mean, not literally, because I've been able to get myself to where I can go out and find deer just about every day I hunt now. But I mean, the chances and the opportunities you get up here are slim because of the lay of the land, how thick it is, the type of forest, and the whole, just the way it's all laid out. I mean, with the ridges and the elevation rises and falls.
That's what you got to work with.
I mean, you have to work for it, and you have to find these deer.
And I mean, like with that hunt we did, it was just us two, and we came down. I mean, we had to recover. It was at least 2 miles, but I mean, like I was the only one like kind of walking through, and like I was telling Wes earlier when we were scoring my buck, I'm like, dude, I said, when we do this, I said, I got thinking about it as I'm
we gotta
walking
have more
through.
people.
We gotta have more people. But
If
like,
we want to
looking,
kill a buck in that area, we're gonna have to have more people.
And I'm looking through it, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of zigzagging a little bit.
We look at our maps, and it isn't that far of land, but at the same time, there's so much you can miss. You know what I mean? You can all day, and just like, it doesn't take much. You can walk along this one ridge, and that buck is 30 yards up over the hill, and you completely walked right by 150-inch deer.
I mean, we did.
You know what I mean?
We did 2 miles of hunts, and we got out of the woods. We had enough time to push off our favorite drive, and we had about half an hour before daylight, and we got before dusk. And we got up there. We started walking in the dark.
Yeah.
And it's
long story short, we got in an hour before shooting light, hiked 2 miles up in, hunted all day, and didn't see a single deer. But we know there's big bucks in there because we rattled and we saw the sign and they're there. But like, you can just literally hunt and hunt and hunt and hunt and hunt and not see deer. And we just happened to get lucky the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we covered
in a way, but at the same time, all this stuff and all the stuff we've been paying attention to is finally starting to pay off. This isn't all luck. In a way, I almost don't believe in luck.
It's
I mean,
years of not killing big bucks and just trying to see what they're
studying and paying attention to. Yeah. It's not patterning the deer. It's knowing where they're at at certain types of the day.
I've seen big for the past, since college. Like, so it's been probably
6, 7, 8 years.
I graduated in 2017. College in 2017. But I've seen big bucks from 2013 until 2020. But I haven't been able to get a shot at them. And it's like, this is all paying off. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. And I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Like, I've got all this experience and all this is catching up to us. But it's like, when am I going to have a year like this again?
No, probably aren't.
It's going to be a long time.
It may be a while, but who knows? You have some guys like Joe Nito. He's literally in the last 15 years killed 120 plus inch deer in the last 15. But it only took the last 15 years. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, you think about his age and stuff. It's like, we got guys in this town. So I'm hoping we get a little head start on it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're saying, so that, what's that guy's name? I think I've heard of him. Joe.
Yeah. He owns
Nito?
a dairy farm out in central New York, and then Hal Blood is from Maine. They both get together every year. Yeah. Sometimes they go out west and do a muley hunt or a whitetail hunt, but a lot of times they get into the Adirondacks and hunt.
Yeah, he had just gotten back from an elk hunt. I actually just saw the video. I think it was.
Do you follow
this
the
morning.
Big Woods Buck podcast?
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
those guys.
Oh, so that's Joe.
That's
on
Joe
there.
and Hal. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think
Okay.
Hal's, but I think Joe's a part of it.
Yeah, Joe Nino's a very respectable Adirondack.
Well known.
Like
yep.
he goes up like probably.
He hunts Moose
like
River
high
Plains,
peaks
which
and-
is what we snowmobile a lot up there.
Yeah,
Token.
I'm familiar with that area.
I've
Yeah.
learned a lot of my buck tracking from him.
Mhm.
And actually that's a whole nother podcast that we could get into about tracking bucks, because the last 3 years I've tracked some bucks, and 2 years ago that one buck that I shot that scored 116 inches I actually shot standing in its bed with a doe, which was pretty cool. And I did track it into the woods a little ways. It wasn't a long hunt. And then last year the buck I killed too, I tracked a ways, but he was standing. I kept jumping him and having to chase him down and jump him and chase him down.
There's
But
one.
all this tracking stuff,
There's one up over there, right?
yeah, one kind of cool
Mhm.
spy. But
Yeah.
those guys definitely know their stuff. It's
Yeah.
cool to pay attention to those guys and
You
kind
gotta,
of
you gotta listen
take
to
what I'm an open book. I take in like a sponge what everyone has to say. I process it, apply
Mm-hmm.
it. If it works for me, I keep it. If not, you got to throw it out the window.
Yeah. I mean, you guys this is a timely conversation because you guys are in it right now. Like you're in rifle season. For us,
Yep.
it's coming, and hopefully, I'm looking at the long-term forecast. Hopefully the weather does start to get a little colder, so we'll have snow for gun.
I saw for Rome it's supposed to drop back down.
Yeah.
It was a 2-week forecast, and it was the end of the 2 weeks. And It's
Yeah.
like,
That's all I care. Our gun season down here opens up the 21st, so that's all I care about is get me some snow by the 21st, and we'll get after it. But just learning about listening to these guys, having these sort of conversations. I think the biggest mistake that I've made in the past tracking bucks when I get on a buck track is I always think I'm right on them and I'm too slow. And I think that's one thing that I've learned from talking to Mark. I've been reading Mark's book, and I've been listening to Hal and some of the other guys that do some of the tracking stuff. It's just you got to know when to, where they are. If they're walking in a straight line, it's time to pick up the pace and cover some ground because they're not.
Joe will tell you in some of his books he literally will run on a track.
yeah, once they see it's going in a straight line, they say take off, and once you see him start to meander,
Yeah,
slow
slow right
down
down. You're taking a
and start
step.
looking.
You're taking a step every 10 minutes.
because they're watching their backtrack, and that's the
They're
biggest
stopping
thing.
to feed in bed. They got only a couple things they do, and the whole how would you put it is like the whole equation of it seems pretty simple, but
It's-
to actually go out there and physically apply it and take a step every 10 minutes, the mental capacity that takes is like
Oh,
still beyond me, but I haven't gotten fully there. But
it's getting there, but it's not there yet.
it's definitely something you have to teach yourself. And it's
So
hard.
I got two things for you.
Go for it.
Well, you got to get some Jocko discipline. You know who Jocko is?
I can.
You know
I
who Jocko
can,
Willink is?
But what's that?
Do you know who Jocko Willink is?
I think I've heard of him before.
So
but I can't-
he's a retired Navy SEAL. He's got a podcast. He's like a motivational speaker guy. He's big into military, business management, all that sort of stuff. But he's got a bunch of supplements. He's got this focus stuff. And
Yeah.
I took 2 of them last Friday, and I was freaking locked in. I was like, yeah. I had 3 cups of coffee, and then I took 2 Jocko disciplines, and I was freaking. It took me 2 hours to go 150 yards, and I'm just freaking stealthing,
Your eyes are about the size.
Oh
of your,
yeah,
No, I love
yeah.
that.
I was on point. I could smell things I couldn't normally smell. It was awesome.
That's
but-
it, man.
That and then grow up a little bit because once you get a little older, things will slow
Yeah,
down. But yeah,
for
it's
sure.
but you got to when you go to the woods and you're going to try to do something like that, you got to be in that mindset when you show up. You can't just. It's really hard to get yourself into that still hunting mindset if you're not there. You got to be present in the moment and not be thinking about what's going on at home, or I got to get back to work, or I got to do this or that. You got to be locked in.
If you're not fully focused, you're not gonna get it done for sure. Because
That's the hardest part about still hunting. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're still hunting, you can be in the zone for 3 hours, and then that I've had it happen to me a
You're
ton.
just
That one time you let it
Yep.
go, you
Yep.
bump something. You know,
boom, he's there.
Yep.
so you gotta, if you're in that moment, I don't know who I was talking to, but I've said it on here before. If you're in that spot where you can feel yourself starting to lose focus, just stop and sit still and
Mhm.
recollect yourself. Have a sandwich or eat some snow, something. I don't know.
Yeah, eat a Snickers or something.
Yeah.
That's what when we were rattling, we ate stickers.
Yep.
I,
That was a cool hunt. I wish I had time to explain that to you, but I don't want to talk people off the podcast.
No, you're good. Yeah, we're right around an hour, so
That's perfect.
that's what I wanted. I wanted to get a little more in depth with you guys, and I guess
Yeah.
for Austin's just a regular Joe, but you got your guiding service, Wes. Is there any plug you want to do for that, or do you have any openings or opportunities this rest of the season?
I've been thinking about that heavily, being 26 years old and really starting to think about the rest of my life and where I kind of want to take both of these businesses. I've been working construction this year, and I have to work tomorrow, which is a Saturday, and it really kind of sucks because I'm going to be in Lake George putting up turbidity curtain because we have to dredge a marina. But so long story short, I'd love to take in some hunts. I'm still promoting my guide business to a certain extent, and I will be taking on specialty hunts. As far as a full-time job, that's not what it is right now. But if any of you guys want to reach out to me through Instagram or my email at lebar_guide_service@yahoo.com or at Lebar Guide Service on Instagram, we can set up a special hunt. I'm still taking in some hunts, but I'm also trying to save a little bit of time for myself. It's just
It's a tough balance when it's not your full-time gig. It's a tough balance.
It's exactly. 2 years ago when I was working for someone else, it became my full-time gig. And then spring 2019, when I started my business, it was full-time, and I did a lot of turkey hunting this spring, which is cool. I hope to get on here again for a turkey hunting podcast because I like booking a lot of those trips because they're fun hunts and the season's long and it's a good time. But yeah, if you want to check out my pages, definitely hit me up.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ran across or heard of Steve Shirk out of PA?
Steve Shirk. Why does that sound familiar? Is he a guide as well, or?
Yeah, he's a guide out of Northwest PA.
Okay.
So I'm going to have him on here. So you guys will be on the podcast this upcoming Monday, and then I'm going to have him on for a little follow-up. We had him on back during the summer. We did a little workshop with him. He does off-season workshops, which that might be something for you to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I worked for Jamie Frazier, we thought about doing some workshops
so
too.
Dallas and I went down because we hunt PA every year, and we want to just kind of understand, how somebody who does that for a living, like how they approach the mountains. And so we went down there and did I think it was like a 4-hour workshop with Steve, and he took us in and actually took us to some of his spots where the big bucks that he's after, that he's posting pictures of on his Instagram page. He took us right to their beds, showed us where these deer are bedding, what they're doing, how he's hunting them. Like, we were blown away. Like, just, he was an open book, super genuine, like, opened it right up. And it was like $125 each for us to just go and pick his brain and ask him all the questions in the world. Like, so that's something for you. I could see you, finding a little niche, doing something like that up in the mountains. Because I don't think there's a lot of people doing stuff like that.
No, it's definitely not. And see, it's so funny that you say that. And that's cool to hear that people are doing that, because I like that people are sharing their knowledge in that sense. But yeah, like I talk about, when I worked for Jamie Frazier there for 2 years, we totally talked about doing these different workshops, like survival in the outdoors and putting up a tent camp in the Adirondacks and hunting backwoods bucks and all this stuff. And we thought about it, and just with how busy we were, and just with our budget, we didn't have the time to do all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's definitely encouragement for me, because it's something I'll definitely consider when I have time, is, doing workshops like that to hunt these big woods, because I can definitely think there's a little bit of a market there for it, because people more and more, and it's just obvious through social media, that people more and more are getting into the outdoors and getting into hunting, and they want to learn, and they see people killing deer and ducks and bears and stuff, and they want to get into it. And I think it's all cool. But, I think everybody should learn how to use a rifle and learn how to, hunt for their food and be independent and, to feed your family and stuff like that. This is a part of life. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did have a good duck season. That's always a fun. That's always a fun season. We love that.
Yeah.
Glad we didn't go deer hunting while we went duck hunting.
Yeah, we decided. Yeah, I know I said this on the last podcast. We duck hunted Saturday and then deer hunted Sunday, and that's when Austin killed that buck.
He's like, you want to go duck hunting?
No, not anymore.
It's deer season, bro. Come on.
Deer season, bro.
There's big bucks in them woods.
Yes.
But we should definitely have you guys up here.
Yeah, if you guys want to come up, we're eager to bring some people up here that, love hunting as much as us and appreciate it and kind of get the whole idea like we do and have the right intentions, but also don't live close enough that they're going to be going behind our backs and hunting there.
For sure. No, and I know we said this the last time we had you on, but I say the same thing for you guys. If you want to come down here,
absolutely.
It's right now with the stage that I know my brother and I and the rest of the guys are at. We all have young kids, and it's super hard. We only get a couple weekends a year where we get the hall pass to go anywhere.
Yeah,
so, if you guys are feeling frisky and you want to, I've got a bunch of areas that we could just hit the ground and we could cover 6-7 miles and not see the same piece twice. I know we could do that, and it'd be a lot of fun to get some guys together to do something along those lines. So
maybe you could use us young bucks as an excuse for your wives as a little hall pass to get out in the woods.
Like there's these kids coming down. They don't really know what they're doing. I got to show them around. Yeah.
Yeah. To teach them a thing or two,
Yeah.
Good thing is, if you guys get up here early, we can get down there later because you run a little bit later.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, they're talking. I'll tell you right now, I'm fired up. I think I'm hoping to God that the state's going to have this holiday doe season. They're talking about doing down in the southern zone. They're going to have a muzzleloader only doe season from Christmas, the day after Christmas to New Year's. So a 9-day season.
Like Arkansas.
And Arkansas, I brought him down there. Yeah. Did I bring you for that season?
Yeah, it was when I was 15.
Yeah, I brought him for that season.
3 days.
Christmas Day and the 2 days after that, 3-day season. It's a rifle season, and you can shoot a buck or a doe down there. But yeah, I like that whole idea. That's a good way to kill your old late season does and to just top off the freezer. I mean, screw it, just pack it full.
I love killing big bucks, but there's something about killing.
Oh, we love shooting laddies.
I love shooting does. I love shooting does more than bucks. I'm gonna admit right here.
Out there and standing there knowing the first deer you see, you can let her have it.
Shooting that old doe that keeps blowing at you. About that.
Oh.
All right. Well, let's stay in touch. I mean, maybe we can tangle together here later in the season, see what's happening with you guys up north. And I would say the chances of us coming up are slim to none this year, but if you guys have an opening and can make it down, that'd be awesome. So.
Well, hey, even the next or the next after that, I mean.
Yeah.
Get older.
Yeah, they can take care of themselves and.
Yeah.
3 years old.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah.
Come on.
And then you got to start bringing them, and that's when things slow down again, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's when you
Yeah.
I got like 5-6 years till Bill Dan will, not even 4 years till my son will be sitting with me in the blind. So I'm excited about that. My dad had my brother and I out there at 6 years old. So
that's awesome.
Excited about it.
Buck was priceless.
Yeah.
And he's
awesome. Yeah, congratulations on your deer, man. That's sweet. That's awesome.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's not a giant buck, but I'm super proud of how it all came together. And I had a plan, and I had a certain amount of time, and I put it together. So,
hey, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like having a plan, man. I mean,
when it comes together,
makes
it makes
it special.
it all better.
I got to show you something. Hold on.
All right.
Oh, look at that.
So that's a buck I found
Oh,
there. I don't know if you heard I just posted it today, but so you probably didn't hear it, but that's a deadhead I found. It's a buck. This piece of property I shot my buck on, it's state land, and been really honing in on it on the last 3 years. And I found that dead head and 2 other sheds from 2 separate bucks that are all like that's a good deer, and especially public land deer and big woods, and I got 2 others that I had the sheds of, and the trail cam pictures I had up until the rut. I mean, it was just wild. I haven't checked cameras since season started, but there's a lot of good deer running around in some of these hills down here, and I just want to get after them. But hey, if I get a 1.5-year-old 8-pointer that comes walking by me, I don't have a hard time.
You know, you don't have it.
Yep. Didn't go 20.
Go 20.
Nope. All right, boys. I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for shooting big bucks, so we have things to talk about. And
absolutely. Hey, hopefully
Wes can get.
I mean, I don't mean to put the pressure on myself, but I'm in the hot seat over here right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of starting to wonder who I would trust more, you or Austin.
All right, I see how it is.
I'm just a trainer.
Yeah, even though I brought him to all my spots, huh?
Yeah.
He goes, you couldn't let that buck come to me, the big 11. He goes, you couldn't let that come to me. I was like, hell no. I go, would you let it come to me? He goes,
I said, hell no.
I was like, there you go.
Yeah.
But even if he missed, that sucker wouldn't make it out of there, was
getting out of there.
No.
He had more lead coming at him than.
He had 4 shots coming at me. So we get back and I'm like, dude, you shot 3 times. He goes, I did? I was like, yeah, you shot 3 times. And he goes, no, I didn't. He goes, I shot twice.
Check my gun. I had 1 bullet.
He goes, well, shit, I
sure
shot
as
3
hell did.
times.
Hey, I love it. You gotta use it as an excuse to lay the lead. You know what I mean?
He's got the semi.
Hey, I was born and raised with it, so I just let him have
The old
it.
Browning 243. The old
The
Browning will hit the
trigger's
moon,
gold,
right.
the buck will fold. Right?
That's right. I'm guilty for I've multiple times on bucks I've racked a clean round out like that I never fired. I'm just freaking excited, just ripping rounds out. Yeah.
I have one guide story, quick story. I'll make it super fast. So I knew a guy he guided, really reputable hunter. He had a client up through the woods. He put him right in this notch. He knew where this big buck would go. He went, got the big buck going. He went right up through. He got to the client. The client was shaking in his boots, and he's standing there with his gun shaking. He goes, you didn't hear that? And the guy goes, no, I didn't hear. He goes, I just shot him. He goes, oh, I didn't hear it. He goes, yeah, I unloaded my gun on him. And the guy looked right next to him in the snow. There was 4 little holes. He reached down in each of those little holes. He pulled up 4 live shells. That buck was so big when that buck was going by him, that guy thought he was pulling the trigger, and he just kept racking in and out.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He didn't pull the trigger one time. He didn't take the gun off safety. He just kept racking live shells.
Yeah.
Mark Mitchell, the guide.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was standing there shaking with holes in the. He had 4 live rounds. I mean, talk about buck fever.
Happens. Freaking
It
happens.
All right, Billy.
Yeah. Thanks
Good
for
talk.
See you, boys.
To do it again, hopefully by the end of the season. But who knows?
Give us
Good
another week. Us will be back on.
Yeah, I hope so.
Cross our
All right.
fingers.
I'm holding you to it. Good luck this weekend, boys.
Yep.
Yeah, you too.
Breeding them no more.
Ain't breeding them no more.
That's it.
All right. See you, boys.
All right. Yep. We'll see you.
Bye.